waiting for
Let's see. Maybe I'll go ready. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first Eco Lunch and Learn of the academic year 2022-2023. My name is Amy Harvey. I'm the Environmental Science Lecturer here at Bermuda College, and we've been co-hosting this event with BEST for about 5 years now. So we're very excited to keep this going and to bring it back in person, have you guys here in person, while also live streaming to those at home or at work that want to listen in as well. And this will be recorded and on YouTube to share with friends and family if you want to do that. So today we're very excited to have Beyond Plastic here. We have Katie Berry, who's a local environmental campaigner. She was the former director of KBB, or Keeping It Beautiful, and she has a degree in anthropology as well as MBA, and is currently the co-lead with Eric Hetzel as the Beyond Plastic champions, I guess.
Yeah, no, I call myself a champion.
Yeah.
I think the best way to describe it. I'm not really into titles, but people go, "What do you do?" And I'm a champion.
You are a champion, yep, in all respects. And then at the end of her presentation, we'll have Q&A, question and answer, and Eric Hetzel, who has a wealth of information, will be able to answer questions as well. He is a local environmentalist. He's, as I said, co-leader with Katie on the Beyond Plastic campaign. He has a master's in marine and estuarine environmental science. And yeah, he has a lot to offer. So we have those experts in the room for you today to talk about plastic and how to save our planet. Thank you and welcome.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, that was not a good start. Sorry, everybody. Okay, because I'm nervous, I've got notes today. Usually I don't like to use notes, but I am a little bit. So I decided it was best to have them. And of course I've gone blind, so I need my glasses to see them. So let's get started. That is not going down. There. Magic. That means that I'm not pressing.
It gives you that has to press something.
Ah.
Soon we nominated you.
Oh, sorry. I don't want to complicate things.
Sorry, everybody.
I know. Oh no, where's Diago, our tech expert? I hope it is definitely that one. It is. How do we get it?
Present. On the bottom.
Oh yeah, I pressed that already.
Present slides.
No, it's not allowing me to do.
Oh dear. When in doubt, I always get my 13-year-old grandson you can navigate completely.
Give us a hot minute. Or you can tell them a story and I'll go get it.
Okay, yeah, why don't I get stuck in and we can go from there. So, good afternoon, everyone. Just a little bit about me and the Beyond Plastic campaign. So, when I was a schoolgirl at Port Royal, I participated in sponsored trash-a-thons for KBB, pulling out cans, bottles, and general waste behind the bus stops at Church Bay. So I've always kind of been passionate about Bermuda and the environment. And so when I became the executive director of KBB in 2021, the role was a perfect fit for me. My own personal belief is that a charity's main goal is to solve problems. And as far as I could figure out, for KBB, it wasn't really about pulling trash out of the bushes. It was about making the community care. Because that was certainly how it was when I was a kid. You know, when we came together as KBB when I was little, it was literally felt like the whole island was cleaning up. And because making the community care and reducing waste was really what the point of KBB is. Because if we have a caring community and a waste-free society, there would be no more trash to clean up. So I was lucky that at the same time, behind the scenes, Eric was busy at work for BEST, leading their kind of plastics campaign. And he really wanted to do something, and BEST really wanted to do something about single-use plastic. And so I signed myself and KBB up immediately because more than 90% of Bermuda's litter and ocean pollution is plastic. So if you're doing something to address plastic, you are improving litter and also helping with the pollution that's on our beaches. And so here we are 2 years later, basically, is how we got to this place. So the collaboration between KBB and BEST, out of it came the Beyond Plastic campaign. And you know, it's really exciting to have two organizations committed to making a campaign like this a reality. But really, the reason it moves forward is because I'm a part of a dedicated team of volunteers. So none of us are paid to do Beyond Plastic. We all volunteer to do this. And we give hours and hours of time to this campaign because we believe that it's really important. And as a group, we decided that we needed to focus on 4 key areas: innovation, education, inspiration, and legislation. So we really believed that it was important to work with the government and the community by taking action to educate, support, and amplify meaningful local solutions. These are things like refill and reuse systems, plastic-free businesses, and practical legislation that will lead to behavior change. So at this point, you're thinking, what has this to do with changing the planet? Well, every year, 500 million tons of plastic are produced annually worldwide, which is a terrifying number. And in 2020, we generated about 200% more plastic than we did in 1980. So it is just on the increase. And 50% of this plastic every year that is produced is single use. And so this is why single use becomes so important, because if we can change that, we're going to change what is going on. And really, single use stuff that we're using is usually in our hands for between 12 and 15 minutes. That's it. And then it becomes waste. So, and it's also, plastic is a waste that never goes away. You know, I know that things say that they're compostable, but most things are not. It is plastic that is there forever. So looking at what plastic is, it's made from chemicals which are a byproduct of the production of planet warming fuels, such as oil, gas, and even coal. However, most of the single-use plastics are a byproduct of the petrochemical industry. And to be honest, when you start looking at the whole pipeline of plastic production, you start to kind of understand why this is such a big deal and why this is where we need to focus our energies right now. Because the petrochemical industry and that whole production of plastic is one of the major contributors to climate change, environmental pollution, and it's also causing so many modern health issues that we're seeing. So plastic has literally invaded the planet, and each and every one of us needs to take action. Is it going to work now?
Just need to double check.
Sorry. Let's have a little look.
Just try.
Just try to-
Suggestion works and just.
Okay.
I think it has to be somehow added, and I don't know why it's not working. Apologies.
That's okay. It's just they don't have any pretty pictures to look
I
at,
know,
but
I know.
hopefully you can hear what I'm saying and it's making sense.
Just give me a second. Someone has gone to look up for the techies, so let me just.
Okay.
Sorry.
So one of the things is that plastic is cheap, but it doesn't really take into account the true cost of plastic, which is 10 times the initial cost when you factor in the additional cleanup costs, like how much time KBB puts in every year cleaning up our island. When you take into account environmental pollution caused by the factories and the health costs. You know, every time I go to the doctor to deal with something that is to do with endocrine disruptors, you know, that is a cost that is never factored into how much plastic costs us. So there are also costs to society at every level, at every stage of the pipeline, from extraction to refinement to production and to disposal. And so this is one of the things that people need to think about is the bigger picture. It is not just what that single piece of plastic costs when you buy it in the store. It is actually what it is doing to the whole world and all the different costs that are associated to it. So it also is a social justice issue because many of the factories that are producing all of this plastic are surrounded by developments with low-income families in them. And they're living near these factories, and the factories are polluting the air and the groundwater around them, and these people are getting sick. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. So these are all my pretty pictures that I'm just going to skip through. So that's about the Beyond Plastic campaign and what we're trying to do. And then that was just a pretty picture. And this is when I'm talking about the factories. And so here we are. So, the plastic has this impact on our lives in many different ways. The environment, climate change, economic impact, social justice issues, and human health. So by the year 2050, plastics manufacturing and processing may account for as much as 20% of petroleum consumed globally and 15% of the annual carbon emissions budget. The energy embedded in our use of bottled water alone is equivalent to 450 million barrels of oil each year. So, we've all seen these factories when we're not in Bermuda and you're driving through Texas or wherever, and you don't really connect this with the plastic spoon that you're using to eat your yogurt, but it's all part of this. So the energy embedded in our use of bottled water alone is equivalent to 450 million barrels of oil each year. That to me is a crazy number. We just take that little bottle of water and we're not really thinking about that fact that it is connected to oil. Then we've got, so we've talked about the fact that 50% of plastics produced is for single-use purposes. 20% of petroleum consumed globally will be from plastics manufacturing and processing by 2050. That's kind of a crazy number, especially when you look at what's going on in Ukraine and the wars that are being waged at the moment around oil and things like that. So, and then you look at it, and 8 million metric tons of plastic are dumped into oceans each year. And that is often single use. There will be more plastic in our oceans by 2050 by pound than there will be fish. And that is amazing that in 100 years, because basically there was not a lot of plastic before 1950, in 100 years, plastic is everywhere. And the thing is plastic does not go away. Shown here is the lining of a paper cup that the paper around it is biodegraded. And this was found in Bermuda during a KBB cleanup. And that just shows you how, it's not, you think that you're touching a paper cup, but it is lined with this plastic. And so the paper goes away, but that is still sitting there many years later. And microplastics are present in human placentas and every water source on the planet. There is so much research coming out right now that is just terrifying, and it is showing us that this substance, this man-made material that has made some things better, is also doing great harm. So the average person right now ingests about a credit card's size of microplastics every week. So we're all, when we're going about our daily lives without even realizing it, we are ingesting these tiny little bits of plastic, and they're going into our systems, and our bodies have no way to filter that out. And that is a real problem, because you think over time, like these little kids that are having that much, what is that going to mean to them when they become adults? So these are the human health issues that are connected to plastics. And what basically is happening is, just as I said, is the bioaccumulation of these nanoplastics that we ingest have been connected to the health issues. And a lot of these are health issues that we see in Bermuda all the time. So there's neurological problems, cancers, birth defects, skin rashes, hormonal changes and disruption, gastric ulcers, respiratory issues, thyroid problems, cardiovascular disease, and infertility. And you think everyone's living longer. So, there's more time for this to cause havoc in our bodies. So it's all pretty scary stuff, to be honest. So there is a really clever lady called Shana Swan, and she started to study all of this. And I know that college students don't probably want to think about this, but sperm concentration and penis size are on the decline. And basically, she released a book called Countdown, and it highlights that there's been a 52% decline in sperm concentration between 1973 and 2011. And it's expected to decline even further by 2040. There are lots of things that can be attributed to this decline, but many of these are founded in plastic or plastic byproducts, such as EDCs, I can never say the word, phthalates, thank you. Bisphenol, which you might recognize from when it was in baby bottles, but that's in a lot of the plastic products still today. PFASs, which is kind of the lining that I talked about, and it can be painted on the inside of the stuff to make it so that liquid doesn't come out. And this also doesn't take into account any environmental damage that plastic is having to the planet as a whole. So basically, this makes for really, not good data, and not. This is why we need to act right now, and we need to put the needs of the future before our own. Going back to a single-use plastic is in our hands for 12 to 15 minutes, and yet this is the effect that it's having on future generations. So what is the solution? Well, this is in the news a lot right now. Just stop oil is everywhere, and it's grabbed headlines, and that's the purpose, and it certainly angered a lot of people. And a lot of people are saying, why are these idiots doing this? But we need to start thinking about oil, and whether we want to be so dependent on it as a planet, because it's doing all of these harmful things, and it sort of infiltrates so much of what we're doing. And there comes a point where we have to push back. So I read a crazy statistic this week that there are more boats crossing the ocean right now carrying oil and petrochemical related products than anything else. And plastic is part of that. So you think if you could cut down on plastic usage, you would be having an impact in all sorts of ways on the planet. So I believe that this is the solution, is young people. We need young people to care and to take what they do in their everyday lives, because they can create impact and they can influence their families and the communities that they're in. And when that happens, we will see the planet change. It takes people doing small things every day to make the big changes that we need to happen where this is concerned. So young people are the leaders that will create the world that we all will live in tomorrow. So a lot of people say, well, let's just recycle plastic. Well, only 9% of plastic has been recycled since plastic was basically invented. And it's not a product that recycles well. And remember, it's toxic. So it is certainly not a solution that we should be considering here in Bermuda. It is not the answer. The solution really is to change our mindsets around this toxic material and change our behavior through individual action and demanding changes from the businesses we support and empowering our government to create legislation that supports this community change. Not all plastic is bad, but certainly it should be reserved for when it is really the best solution and not the cheapest. So the Bermuda government they first talked about bringing about legislation before COVID. So, and there's been a team working under Deputy Premier Ravan, and they have proposed these items for legislation to be included. So the Beyond Plastic team has done a lot of research. We're really supportive of this list. But we do need to rethink how we do things as a country in order to be able to make these changes. So, there's some things that are easy. The plastic stem cotton buds, well, those come in cardboard. And most of the grocery stores on the island don't even stock the plastic ones anymore. So that's a really easy fix. I think the things that come to mind on that list that are a little bit more challenging are obviously the plastic water bottles. You know, a hurricane comes, and what do we all do? We stand in line with Lindo's and buy crates full. And so we need to rethink how we do water in times of hurricanes and different stress. It is all possible though. Styrofoam containers. We all love our takeout. COVID definitely meant that it became a regular feature of our lives. And styrofoam is one of the most toxic types of plastic. So we really need to rethink things like our takeout models in order to make it easy for the customer and easy for the business to do the right thing. What else did I want to say on this point? Yeah, I think the thing is we really have to think it can't just be legislation. Legislation on its own isn't necessarily effective. We need a cultural change. And it cannot just fall to the restaurants and the takeout places and the grocery stores to do all the hard work. We all need to do our part. So there's a lot of greenwashing out there. And I certainly still fall foul of this. And thank goodness I have Eric, because Eric can decipher any of this. And it is tricky. And so we've all got to get educated and get smart about what is greenwashing and what is not. So I was in the supermarket on the weekend, and I was standing in the line because everyone likes to go to the store on a Sunday, I realized. And you know, they obviously tried hard, and there was some disposable cutlery, and it said compostable. And so you thought, great, well, if I have to use single use, at least it's compostable, this is great. You turned it around, and actually when you looked at it, it is only compostable in an industrial facility, which we do not have in Bermuda. There's only about, what, 30 in the whole of the United States? Yeah, there isn't a lot out there. But basically it's industrially compostable because it actually has an element of plastic in it. So you're being misled right from the word go. So the business has the right intentions. They're trying to do the right thing. The customer has the right intentions, but this greenwashing is where we all get stuck. So the biggest thing to look for is the one on the end, the TUV Austria. That is home compostable. Now, in Lindo's at the moment, their bags, the produce bags, have that symbol on it. So that you can literally put in your garden and it will go away. And, you know, another example is that isn't home compostable is the compostable poo bags for dog poo. And those actually just break into a million little pieces of plastic. They don't go away. A home compostable, if it's certified with that sign, it will go away. So that's what we're all looking for. That's the ideal. There's more of these badges coming online, and we have to get smart. You can always go to the Be On Plastic website. We have examples of what is good and try and explain some of these symbols to make it a little bit easier. And then the biggest thing that we all need to do is to think through replacing, reusing, and refusing. So we need to replace single-use cutlery with our own cutlery that we take around with us. There's lots of great products out there in Bermuda in the stores. They're all bringing this stuff in. You know, replacing plastic bags. We're actually do a pretty good job on that. At the grocery store and stuff, but we need to put that in every part of our lives, because I know certainly when my husband goes to get his lunch, it is in a plastic bag, and I said, you've got to stop it. You've just got to say, no bag, I don't need it. And then coffee cups. Coffee cups is one of our biggest use of single-use plastic on the island, and they may feel like paper and cardboard on the outside, but they are painted with plastic on the inside. And so a simple solution is taking our own coffee cup with us. There are so many different styles, brands. Find one that you like and take it and ask for it to be filled in your favorite coffee shop. And you will find that that is great, because for the business, that saves them money. They're no longer having to buy a single-use plastic cup. And so that is definitely a great option. And I think that's something that we all need to think. My kids love their smoothies or their lemonades or whatever it is. And I do think it is up to me to remember to have in the car reusable containers so that those get filled up instead of taking the plastic. We have to help the businesses. And these are the ways that as the individuals, we can help. Containers. That's another big one for all of us. You know, you go to a restaurant, you have some leftovers. You know, if we just got into a habit of taking a container from home, any leftovers they could put right from the table straight into that, and you could go home with them. And then that restaurant doesn't need to supply you with anything. So it's thinking about how we live and trying to come up with the solutions. So this is kind of some of the things that you can do. But what else can you do? Well, so avoiding water in plastic bottles is an obvious one. And, you know, that's something that we all need to think about, whether we need filters on our taps or in our houses to make sure that we have a clean water bottle. You know, most of us have a habitual life where we go out and we do the same things every day. And so we just need to plan ahead and think about how can I have the water that I need so that I don't need to buy plastic water bottles. And we all just need to get used to carrying our reusable water bottles. And that goes also for your favorite smoothie or frappuccino or whatever it is. You know, most of us are doing the same things on a regular basis. And so we just need to make sure we have the tools for success. So we need to avoid single-use plastics such as straws, even the biodegradable ones. I know people hate the paper ones, so do I. So just say no, or if you really need to use a straw, because I have a girlfriend who has the most amazing lipstick, and just take your own one with you. And we need to say no to disposable plastic cutlery. When we pick up our lunch, we just need to say no thank you. You know, most of us are too polite, and we just let them put it in that plastic bag along with our salad. Hopefully you're getting a salad. And actually, you know, we just need to say no thank you. And we could start our order by saying no bag, no cutlery, I'd like my salad. And that means that, you know, that you have helped the person that is serving you to know what you would like. That is individual action that we can all take. And we definitely, with disposable plastic cutlery, we need to get our own and takeout containers. So you're going to see that restaurants across the island are going to accept our own containers. So bringing our own containers has to be how we start to live. And then another one is when we go and get ice cream or a slushie or a snow cone, which my kids love in the summer, just ask for a cone, because then you're not having single-use plastic. Or take your own cup. It's a pretty easy fix. It just requires planning. So drinks in plastic bottles. It actually is really interesting is if you go to drinks cabinets, often it is fruit juice and things like that that are in plastic, or drinks that appeal to kids. You know what we need to try? I have, with my little kids, I say, can you try and find that in a can? Not you can't have it, but try and find the alternative. And they're getting pretty savvy at knowing which shops they like to go to because they can get their favorite drink in a can as opposed to a plastic bottle. And consumers really have power. So if we want something and we buy it continually, our businesses get that message and they start bringing in those products more and more. I mean, I've certainly seen it, is the rise in the flavored bottled water, like the Spindrifts and all of these kind of, you know, those are all coming cans and people are buying those and they're no longer buying necessarily the traditional sodas that I grew up with, the grape sodas, the Sunkist, you know, those kind of things. So, and the other option is to get a soda stream. It's Christmas coming up. A soda stream makes a great present and it saves you a lot of money and it means that you haven't got all of these cans. So taking a cloth bag when you go out, we all need to become better at having a cloth bag because things come up and you need something to put things in. And it's so easy to say, oh, just take that plastic bag this once, you know, and so taking a cloth bag. And I know there's a lot of propaganda out there that cloth bags are more damaging to the environment than plastic ones. Well, you know what? A reusable bag is reused and reused and reused. It is always going to be better, and ultimately it's better for your health. And there's so many cute bags out there, and Wicker's back in. It's the style of the season. So, you know, there's really no excuse. Another thing that we can all do to reduce our plastic and help our community is to buy from our roadside merchants and from the farmers market, because there's no plastic packaging. in those sort of places, and that immediately supports local and reduces our single-use plastic. Chewing gum. You don't really think about it, but chewing gum is plastic. And that is a little bit terrifying. There are natural gums out there, but you need to be quite savvy and look for those. But ultimately, it is a single-use plastic, and you're chewing that plastic and swallowing that plastic. So that's kind of a big one for me. I keep on telling my kids this so that they realize that it's not really that good for them. Buying in bulk, we've definitely seen the rise of bulk shops in Bermuda. We need to support them. You know, when you buy in bulk, you reduce the amount of single-use plastic packaging. It is cheaper, and it definitely has a lot less plastic. Ditching the cling film. Now, I know that that's a big one, and everyone's like, no, but we do need to ditch it, and there are great alternatives. There's the beeswax wrap that even comes in a roll now. We're seeing that there are products coming onto the market called biofilm and stuff like that I think you'll start seeing in Bermuda that are an alternative to the plastic cling film. You get great silicone things that you can put over things now. So if you look out there in the retail shops in Bermuda, there are alternatives, and you can actually give up cling film. Tupperware. We have to break up with our love of Tupperware. And one of the worst things that we do is we then put the Tupperware in the microwave oven. And that is when you heat up the plastic, it is then going in the food, and that makes it even more toxic. And so we do need to swap out, and I know it's expensive. My cousin who's in college, she's like, but Katie, it costs so much. And I'm like, I know, just one a month, buy a glass one a month, to slowly replace. And, you know, I get really thrifty with it. I reuse every glass pasta jar or jam jar. I wash them out and I use them for other things. Leftovers go great in pasta jars. And the other one that I do is that you'll see them in the stores at the moment, all the stainless steel, not stainless steel, but the tins that come out at Christmas time for cookies and stuff. Save those. They are great to store things in. And you'll see the supermarkets are going to be stocked with them really soon. Sorry, this is quite an exhaustive list of the single-use plastics that you can, or the plastics that you can get rid of. And this is what we as individuals can do to take action. So wooden laundry pegs. We need to stop using the plastic ones because they break, and you know, it is just becomes waste. And the thing about putting your washing out on the line is it's actually a double whammy for the environment, because you're not using that power in the dryer. You're using Mother Nature to dry your stuff. And if you're using wooden pegs, it's that much better. Makeup is the next one on the list. So you don't really realize this, but in lipsticks and a lot of cosmetics, there are plastics. And so there are several retailers on island who have done a great job of actually cleaning out the plastics from the cosmetics that they sell, so that they don't have the microplastics in them. And the other one that we can do is buy a biodegradable hairbrush, because all of those plastic hairbrushes end up being trash at some point. Disposable razors is another one. You know, giving up disposable razors, swapping out shaving cream that comes in cans because that plastic lid is, you know, it's things like that that can make a difference. Avoiding clothing that's made of plastic and wearing natural fabrics. So plastic clothing is usually anything man-made like polyester and nylon. That's just a fancy word for plastic. And if you really think about it, buying secondhand is a great option. And just buying natural fabrics as far as possible. We have lots of thrift options in Bermuda. Orange Bay, Red Cross. Actually, as a country, we're really good at finding new purposes for things. And we just need to take that kind of mentality into what we're trying to do when we're replacing these single-use plastics and other plastics in our lives that really we don't necessarily need. So you probably noticed that there's been a change in the grocery stores. You're now seeing bars of shampoo and conditioner as opposed to the big plastic containers. And it's come a long way. When I first started using one of them, I was like, this does not work. And I have a lot of hair and my kids have a lot of hair. Now the products are really good that are out there, and they're in all the grocery stores and all the pharmacies. And cleaning is another place. You know, you think of all the bottles of plastic cleaning stuff that we buy all the time in the grocery stores. Well, you know, as students on a limited budget, or anybody that just wants to bring their shopping budget down because it is getting a bit eye-watering, it's replacing with the things that my grandmother used: vinegar, water, lemon juice, all of those things. Baking soda, you know, that is a miracle product. And there's so many recipes online to tell you how to do it. And you then don't have that waste of all those plastic bottles. It also is a lot cheaper. So, and that's also in things like to do with washing up. So I've moved to using natural cloths and sponges as opposed to those plastic scrubbers and things that we've been using. And so, you know, that's just a very simple way, because if they're plastic, they start to fall apart, and you think all of those little bits of microplastic then go down your drain and into the planet. So, you know, anything that you can kind of replace like that is going to have a positive benefit. So one of the things that I'm not sure everybody realizes, but our number one littered item in Bermuda is cigarette butts. And it has always been cigarette butts, and it is still cigarette butts. I did a roadside litter survey last year with a bunch of students, and we went back to the same places that had been done, I've forgotten how many years before, quite a number of years before, and cigarette butts were still the number one item. Even though it feels like there aren't as many people smoking these days, it is still the most littered item. And those little butts are plastic. They are not paper, they are plastic. So when people are smoking, they are ingesting that tobacco smoke through that plastic, and that is going into their lungs. So, you know, people really need to think about smoking and their health. And, you know, if you do, it will help your wallet and the planet. So the other part of smoking is obviously lighters. So I don't know if you've seen any of Meredith's work that she did, and cigarette lighters are one of the items that she finds on the beaches here more than anything. So I say bring back the Zippo and refillable, and make the Zippo cool again, and get away from these single-use lighters. They are one of the most common type of trash found in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch as well. They've done a lot of research on what is floating around in the Pacific, and lighters are one of them. And I'm sure if we went into the Atlantic Garbage Patch, it would be a similar story, judging by how many lighters are washing up on our beaches all the time. And they're a particularly type of pervasive plastic because they're colored and it's very hard, and so they don't even break up. They just circle and circle in the Atlantic. So refillable and giving up smoking is definitely the way forward. Tea bags. People don't really think about tea bags, but tea bags are made of plastic. And so we need to start getting savvy and looking for the plastic-free tea bags. And the great thing about plastic-free tea bags is you can put them in the garden and they compost, and your roses will love them. Glitter. My 9-year-old is very sad about this, but we have to break up with glitter and things that sparkle, because we all love something that sparkles. It's especially lethal because it's so tiny, and we know once your kid has played with, or your grandchild has played with glitter, it is everywhere. There are now starting to be eco-friendly, biodegradable forms of glitter, but you have to be really, really careful. But that's something that as consumers, we just need to stop, and then it will stop being made. This is going to be even more controversial. Balloons. So the balloon arch has become necessary, it seems, at every graduation, birthday party, everywhere there's a balloon arch. And unfortunately, this is single-use plastic. And when you think about it, there must be other more creative ways that we can celebrate than an arch full of balloons that kill turtles and other marine animals and are toxic to all of us. And so balloons is not, a lot of these things are not on the government's list, but this is what we can all do to help. Plastic-free sunscreens. I mean, I do not know why anybody thought that putting plastic in sunscreen was a good idea, but they did. Luckily, there is lots of sunscreens on island now that have no plastic in, but it is definitely something that we should all be paying attention to, because you think you're wiping that plastic all over your body, and that is seeping into your body. It's not great. And then for the ladies, it's time to make periods plastic-free. There's all sorts of products these days: period underwear, washable cotton pads, silicone cups. There's no need for all the plastic that we have all been dealing with and trying to hide when there's no bin for years. So it's definitely time for all of us to rethink that. But the big thing is to get smart about all of this as individuals. Is we really need to avoid the worst types of plastic. And one of them is number 3, PVC. That is particularly toxic, and it affects the brain and the nervous system and things like that. Polystyrene, another really, really toxic plastic, and polycarbonate, which is number 7. So you're really trying to avoid number 3, number 6, and number 7. Those plastics are so bad for us. And polycarbonate is also contains BPA, which I think we all know a little bit more about. And you know, I think we just need to, as consumers, get smarter, avoid the things that are most toxic, and just try our hardest, because it's a lot and we're not all going to be perfect tomorrow. So the big thing is that you should keep up with our campaign. There's so much information on our website to help everybody figure this out. And you can always email me, info@beyondplastic.bm, and Eric, who has such great knowledge on everything to do with plastic, because we're all going to find this change tricky, and it's okay. But we're here to work together, and that's the big thing about the Beyond Plastic campaign, is we really believe in supporting the community and supporting government through this change. We're not here to wag our fingers and say, you shouldn't be doing this and everything. I know I've just given you a list of things you can change, but it is a process and we have to start somewhere. And we would certainly love more volunteers. At the moment, I can't work fast enough, and I'm working full time on this, and so is Eric and the team that I work with. So if anybody wants to get involved, we would love volunteers, and we would especially love to encourage students to get involved, and even form a Champions of Change student group, because you know, the energy from students with their passion to kind of decide what their island is going to look like in the future is an important part of this. And then I'm going to end with this quote, which we always love. We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. And that's the main point of this, is it is hard to take something that has become so convenient and just go goodbye. But we all need to do what we can, because together it will change. Thank you. So,
Does government have a date? So do you know the date that government?
So they're being really cagey about it. The one thing that I can say is that it was meant to be tabled, the legislation, before Christmas, so that will be in the coming weeks. Now, if that was to happen, the items on the list that they would include, it wouldn't be that on January 1 it would disappear. It would be, let's say cups, it would be that actually, you know what, that's going to go in 2024 on March the 3rd. There's going to be lead times with this and phases, because some products are much harder for us to move away from than others. So I would have expected things like plastic cutlery to probably be one of the first to go. You know, that's something that is fairly easy to replace. And I think the cotton buds can go immediately. I think we're all quite happy with the cardboard and probably don't know the difference. But then there are other things like plastic water bottles that are going to take time. And so you're going to see longer phases for us because in some instances we need research and development around the world to kind of catch up. And we're seeing we can't keep up. We're talking to the wholesalers all the time, and they're sending us new products, and we're finding new products everywhere. It's coming, but and so some things are going to get easier to replace in time, and the government's aware of that, and so their legislation is going to be a phased approach to this. So it's not going to be that everything disappears on January the 1st, 2023.
And Judy, is government discussing changing the duty? Because a lot of these items that they offer are 3 times the price.
Yeah, and we're seeing changing in the prices, but absolutely. But we've been pushing government very hard to do duty relief. They are listening to us. How that works, we're not sure, but they do know that this is something that they need to consider and they need to look at. So I would expect duty relief for a period of time on some products.
Okay.
That's what we're hoping. We're sitting there with fingers crossed that that's what they do.
Okay. And the last thing I have also with clothing, a lot of clothing has become disposable because it's so inexpensive, buying it from overseas.
Yep.
Years ago, the duty rate was different. Cotton, 100% cotton was cheaper.
Yep.
It was from the other type of clothing you have to list it. Now everything's just put in one pool. So are they looking to maybe change it back? How they do the duty rate on
clothing? We have not had that discussion with them, but I would really suggest that you actually, as a concerned citizen, put that to the government. And I mean, you can even email me and I will forward that on, because they are very open right now to hearing what everybody's thoughts are. And that is a great suggestion. Hi.
Solutions for trash bags and waste bags.
So this is an interesting one, and is our waste management system at the moment is not designed to get rid of trash bags. So that will not be in the legislation at this stage.
I'm not saying it's legislative.
What we would like, but what we would like to do is see investment in our waste management system so that our bins were picked up, like the City of Hamilton bins, they get picked up by the truck and it goes straight into the back. There's no need.
The answer to that is there are too many winding lanes, jigs and jags that were just not laid out in the grid where a truck can work like that.
Right, but we also, we are, because the trucks are the same in the city as they are in the rest of Bermuda, but they have these automatic pickup and all of the bins in the city are the same bins. So there would need to be considerable amount of investment in the waste management thing. We also need, like other countries, to start sorting our trash, because if you sort at source, it's a lot easier than when it gets to the incinerator. So, when I'm in the UK, I know that there's like a million different buckets that I have to put everything in. And, I come home to Bermuda and it's great. You shove everything in a bag and you put it out and our guys pick it up. And, but we do need to change as an island where waste is concerned. And there is so much to do. Recycling, for example, we have a great recycling facility and yet only 20% of households recycle. So there is so much room for improvement in the waste management. And I think the team at Beyond Plastic, I think that's something that we're always keeping an eye on. And we talk about how, as a society, we really need to rethink waste. And that is almost the next piece after the single-use plastic, is trying to get everybody to be less wasteful and to make our waste system more efficient. When I was a kid, my grandparents reused everything, and any jam jar was then washed out and the loquat chutney went in it. And we need to be a little bit more like that. And as an island, we were used to be really good about things like that. And we just need to rethink.
I totally agree. But just my original, I am still looking for a solution for trash bags and waste bags.
And
Okay.
Eric's got one.
So one of my favorite things at home, actually. So I had just had to move houses temporarily, and in doing that, I left one of my favorite appliances behind, and that's a trash compactor.
Yeah.
And a trash compactor, you can use paper bags. They may be lined with a thin line of plastic, but they're not plastic. And you can get paper compactor bags. It's not necessarily an easy fix for everyone, but what I found is in that process of moving, I hadn't bought trash bags in 20 years. And suddenly I was using 2 or 3 trash bags a week when I went and started using the compactor. And now my compactor is happily compacting a month's worth or 6 weeks worth of, paper. It's mainly paper, obviously. They don't need trash bags.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. So 50% of our waste in Bermuda is cardboard related, which is a huge, huge number. That's what ends up in the incinerator. And then you've got food waste. Now, if we could figure out how to bring in composting on island, where we had some kind of subscription service where I paid a company to come and pick up my compost and took it to Marsh Folly. So then your waste is then dry. Then you really can look at using paper instead of plastic. And so these are all the things, these are all the discussions that need to start happening on island. I mean, when I was a kid, when all the bags in the grocery stores were paper, my mum used those in our bin. She didn't use plastic. And then when those went, suddenly she had to move to plastic. And I remember coming back from university and being like, oh, and that was a major shift. So we've done it before. I think we need to just rethink what we're doing. And a trash compactor is a great option. I know it's an expense, but if some of the island did it, it would help.
And then for your ice, you can just put it directly in the cooler instead of putting it in the ice.
Yeah.
I'm
But you need to get the supplier to give it directly to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
most of
So I'm
most
just
of them
looking at it.
do it.
Oh, yeah.
from a club point of view. So I'm presently the Commodore at the Ding Club.
Yep.
Got rid of all the plastic from our takeaway and straws and things like that.
Well done.
Just looking for the next step. And
Yep.
The obvious thing is ice bags.
Yep.
Which mostly go out as ice and come back as trash bags.
Yep.
So we get 2 out of them.
Yep.
But what do people do on their boats? Trash bags and ice bags.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting them to bring their cooler and filling up right there so that there's no need to bag it either. And that saves you guys time. You don't have to have somebody bagging it. They're essentially doing that service for themselves. That would be the immediate solution.
Do you have an ice machine on site?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's putting it in a,
Store it so it's ready.
no, there's definitely
Can't
that.
keep up. It can't
Yeah.
keep up.
Yeah.
with the-
Works all night to make it ready for the
But I do think there's also all sorts of other products on the market, like, ice packs and things like that. We've got very used to just getting a bag of ice and dumping it in a cooler. And actually, if we all replaced a lot of that with reusable ice packs and just had a little bit of ice to pop in our drinks, that would also be a better solution. And you can get ice cubes that are reusable, and you can get the wonderful cups. I was on a boat this summer, and the people that invited me out on the boat had these cups that kept everything cool. They were amazing. And
Just about
reuse and
one
reuse and
cup
reuse.
now. We've almost won that one, particularly you can now get Star cups and things.
Yep.
So pretty much won that out. But just
Yeah.
chipping away at things.
I mean, I
Looking
think,
at how
it's
it's
specifically for our boating community, I think it's especially important to think about moving away from plastic. Because when you're on a boat, you are inches from that becoming plastic pollution. And so getting our boaters to move to more waste-free is definitely, and less plastic is definitely the way forward. And I do think, you look at those Yeti coolers that you now get, I mean, they're sort of incredible, and they keep things cool for ages and ages. And
keep your ice for a week. cost.
I know.
They
Yeah.
do.
But they pay for themselves.
They are investments. But you think of how many bags of ice you buy in a year, and then it's an upfront cost, and that is sometimes what we're dealing with. It's about like when we replace Tupperware with glass containers or stainless steel containers, there is an upfront cost rather than having your Tupperware. But once you've done it, you get the benefit time and time and time again.
Katie also mentioned a lot of it is planning ahead, and revisiting old school ways. So like refilling milk containers and freezing that and block the ice.
Yep.
Just encouraging you to do that.
Still my pre-hurricane go-to.
Yeah, see, very exactly, right? So it's just
And
like tips like that for people who don't.
And I have to say the Dunkley's milk cartons, unlike in other places, they are not lined in plastic. They are lined in wax, so they are great. So yes, so I have to say we are lucky that they are still the same cartons, and they didn't choose to have the ones that were moved to plastic. And they do make great ice blocks.
In advance of the government legislation, is there any pressure to bear on different stores? I know a lot of them are very good. If you go for takeout, they ask you, do you want a bag? Do you want cutlery?
Yep. So,
Automatically, but there are other places, and I won't name names.
Yep.
You buy a greeting card, they just automatically shove it in
yes.
plastic bag, which drives me nuts.
Yeah, and so you have to be very fast and say no plastic, no bag, no,
Yeah.
and that's very much the individual piece of this is to be able to say no thank you immediately and not be embarrassed about them taking it out and putting the plastic bag. They can use that for somebody else that isn't willing to give up.
But is there any way that they can stop providing the bags? Like Gibbons Company, they provide their own bags. You can't pull them from the market automatically.
Well, that will be in the legislation.
Okay.
Is plastic bags in a retail setting. What the timeline for that is, we don't know. And we certainly are meeting with all the retailers, and the ones that don't feel that they are yet ready to give up, they say we need the legislation so that
Okay.
it's a level playing field. But little things like, some of our retailers are catering predominantly to tourists off the cruise ships. And so they want the plastic. Now, if there is legislation, then the cruise ship will then tell those visitors, by the way, there's a plastic ban and you will not be able to go. And so then our retailers aren't having to push back against the visitors. The visitors know this is what we're doing here. And certainly our islands to our south are already doing things like this. So it's not like we're the only place with cruise ships that is saying we don't want plastic bags in our t-shirt shops. So it is coming. We're just trying to help. We are a small volunteer team, and what we're finding is we're having to go and talk to every single retailer. It's great when someone contacts us, and it just stops us having to figure out who's the right person to speak to, and so we just encourage everybody to get in contact because we want to help. And we also know what are the difficult things and what are the not so difficult things. We know we have Eric and another one of my colleagues, they work with the wholesalers, and the wholesalers are saying, oh, we've got this new product and we've got this new product. So if someone calls us, we can say, oh, go and talk to this person at, this wholesaler, go and talk to this person. We are trying to help because, it's sometimes people have got the same product from the same supplier, and they don't even know that actually you can get something from another supplier that actually would fit the bill.
Yeah. So providing alternatives.
Yes, providing alternatives. Absolutely. There was a question up at the top.
Oh, yes, that was really informative. Thank you. I wanted to ask a question about if you could report, I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
Data, but I know that there have been some initiatives taken in other jurisdictions, like in California, how they got rid of the water bottles a few years back. Are there any reports on improvement around that, or is there even a way to do that? My second comment is about how it is kind of like getting on a more positive note in the sense that this gives a space for innovation, really.
Yes, it does.
For example, I've seen tons of, I've actually committed to some GoFundMe's and Upstarts for people who are making at-home little compost machines. Because stuff like that, where you can literally incinerate at home.
Yep.
In a little toaster type thing, and you just produce like hard
Yep.
powder, right? Which that can be used in your garden.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I totally agree with you that it has to be lifestyle and it's very doable, and it also gives opportunity for our youth to do innovation.
Well, and so that's one of the things, our 4 pillars. One of them is innovation, is we really see that there's opportunity for Bermudians right now to come up with new models and new types of doing things in a way. You know, where there's change, there's always going to be headaches, but there's also opportunity. And I think that opportunity is incredibly exciting, you know, and we're trying to encourage that. So we brought a company from the States, Perpetual. We did a webinar a couple weeks ago, and Eric's working really hard on this, is having reusable schemes in the restaurants and in the grocery stores, in their deli kind of things, so that we can get rid of styrofoam, which is the most terrible form of plastic. And so we're just desperate for somebody who wants to start a new business to take this on. We're literally like, here's the information, please.
When you're talking about cruise ships, I already picture like young Bermudians selling cotton bags.
Yes.
Right off the cruise
Yes.
ship, just buy and see in the shop.
Yes.
Just have a whole campaign on that. Like, I'm already imagining our young people.
Yes.
So there's lots of positive. It's so scary and so awful, like the truth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot of a lot of silver lining around this in evolution and us moving forward.
Yeah, no, there is. There is so much opportunity, and I think we will benefit as an island if we will just take that step and try and think outside of the box. And I think we can do it. And I think we have the right culture and the right mentality to find innovative, cool stuff that makes Bermuda unique. We've done that since the beginning of time, and I think we just need to use that, which is in our cultural DNA, to make these changes. And I think the what is possible is what we need to go into every conversation with. But there was a first part of your question, which I've now forgotten.
Oh, the first part of my question was, do you have any current reports around jurisdictions that did take that leap? Like I know about California and Sweden. Those are the 2 things I know about, because I know that Sweden is actually negative waste, and I know that California, which is besides Canada,
Yeah.
population-wise, got rid of plastic bottles quite some time ago.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know.
So we've been trying to talk to people on refillable water stations, because one of our big concerns is that we have people that are in their trucks all day long. And so, you know, what do? They go to a gas station and pick up a bottle of water. And so, you know, it would be great. I feel that water should be a human right, you know, access to clean drinking water. And certainly when I was a kid, there were water fountains all over the island. I don't quite know where they all disappeared, but they did. And so if we could move to, you know, if there was a water refill station at every gas station on the island, it would be so great, because people would stop, fill up their gas, fill up their water, you know. And I know that the government, so we have Watlington Water Works, but we also have the government network of water has been increasing. They've been extending that program. I just need somebody to get everybody into the room and go, how do we do this? We're not that big. We should be able to have access points across the island that would allow a refillable system.
Corporation of Hamilton have 6.
They have,
stations
exactly.
in Hamilton.
But you have to get people to trust that water. That's the other thing.
Yes,
They have
that's
to
the
trust
thing.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
all of our water,
Yeah, okay.
I have to say the government water and the Watlington water is, there are international standards that has to go by, and DENR actually tests the water periodically to make sure that it meets international standards.
But
And
that
I-
should be like signed on the thing. This has been tested.
Yeah,
you know, recently
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of urban myths around water
Mhm.
here,
Mhm.
and one of the ones that I found where I had to have my water tested in my tank recently, and our rainwater is very alkaline. It's actually a little bit more alkaline than the alkaline water that you buy in stores. So really, we just need to be filling up our water bottles. We don't need to be buying expensive water because it's alkaline, because our natural water that's landing on our roofs is actually very alkaline, which I thought that's something that everybody in Bermuda needs to know.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot out there about the tanks and stuff. And so maybe we all need to get filters. That may be the simple solution, is that actually our water is good. We just need to filter it. So that, you know, the bird poo and that kind of
But the
leaves and
filters
stuff of
are
it.
plastic.
So not all of them. So I have a stainless steel water filter called a Berkey, and it is fantastic. And I would love to see that being brought into the island by a retailer, so that they could make the money off it. And you just fill it up, and it filters it out, and there's not a bit of plastic on it. So there are products out
What
there.
was the name of that?
It's a Berkey, Berkey.
Because so that brand actually has tech that can make water potable that's not
Yes, it does.
amazing.
Yes, they are.
Amazingly expensive.
Well, to buy water one that sits on wasn't terrible when you think of how much you spend on buying bottled water, right? So it's offset.
Looking at the angle from the endocrine disruption alone,
Yes.
right? It's very hard to pinpoint a causality there with the locally raised, the recession of the Y chromosome, so less than half the size of the 60.
Yes.
All of that contributed to plastic. There are plenty of, like I learned in university in the 80s about the breast cancer cells multiplying in the control petri dishes that were made of plastic.
Yes.
You know, so we've known this for quite some time. And so I think that, for instance, the Annabelle Fountain there, that's obviously why she was there.
Yep.
Endocrinologist. So I think that taking the angle of looking at endocrine disruption in the community and what that means for diabetes, for fertility,
Yep.
and various cancers, I think that's a really important, not a scare tactic, but, you know, I think it's an important truth that needs to be disseminated clearly.
People need to be educated about it. Like, because I don't think people realize when they're picking up that plastic water bottle what they're doing to their bodies and what they're possibly doing to their future generations and how that's going to manifest in future generations. So, I mean, I have to say, do you want to come and help us?
I know.
Volunteer. Because you know, and I have to say, is I think that it would be lovely to get you on camera saying exactly what you just said.
Just like green washing.
Yeah.
Right? I'm actually not a doctor by profession, so
Okay.
there's also something called a health hail. It's the same idea. Where marketing will get together and practically industry and whatnot. Instead of like, oh dear, we're telling people that change our product,
Mhm.
they just change to the label on the product.
Yeah.
So it'll look more healthy.
Yes.
You know, like using terms like light
Yes.
and et cetera have been, you know, the psychological manipulation. I think that that's a very important part of our education,
It is,
you know.
hands down.
Yeah.
You're
There's
absolutely
a lot
spot
of
on.
overlap with the individual's health and health of the environment.
Definitely.
Yeah, those are all great points, especially when you start talking about endocrine disruptors and the marketing. And I'd like to dwell there, but I'm going to circle back to something because you asked the question about the stats, and we don't have the stats. Unfortunately, in California, what it was is they didn't ban plastic water bottles across the state or even in a municipality. They banned it in San Francisco's municipal offices. Or things that were under the municipal government's control. But that does include the airport, which is a huge operation. And last time I checked, everybody in the airport in San Francisco was pretty happy when I walked through. The world didn't end because they lost their plastic water bottles. You know, which is hard to tell people sometimes. People are so used to getting that plastic water bottle. But back to that 5 gram stat about people ingesting plastic. The largest source of plastic is actually from water bottles or any kind of drink bottle.
And it's
Just
just,
wanna
it's
put that up.
convenience, everybody is just
Yeah.
so convenient.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just.
I'm just used to doing things in a certain way. So can I just take one little millisecond to brag about Bermuda College? That's our job, right, Trace? So we were the first school in Ireland to have a balloon-free graduation in 2019.
Hooray!
Yes, right. Everyone said no, you don't go to do. People protested. There were some nasty comments on Rose that I think they called us the party killers.
Oh, wow.
But we did it, right? And that was like pushback. Don't get me wrong. People still showed up with their little balloons for their family member or whatever. Fine, but we had way less, and our decorations did not include balloons. Post-COVID, we had our first in-person graduation in May this year,
Yes.
and it was so beautifully decorated with beautiful fabrics and greenery and not a balloon inside. So it can be done.
It can be,
It can
and
be
we
done.
do have the most amazing green foliage on this island,
Yeah.
and some pretty talented people out there that can do amazing things that I think are unique to us.
Yeah.
And so if we can get people thinking like that, we'll get there.
No more balloon arches inside.
It's hard to believe when you grow up with free water in the tap.
Yeah.
That you would turn into a society that would choose to buy it in a plastic bottle.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
It's not really.
Very expensive too.
It's very expensive.
That's it, yeah, so what, $125 for a truckload?
Yeah.
Imagine that's 1,000 gallons. Imagine you pay for that 1,000 gallons in big bottles.
No, absolutely. You look like you have a question.
No, I'm going to discuss some things with you after the fact.
Okay, great. Thank you everybody for coming, and please send people my way if you have questions.
Sorry, Katie, before you just disappear, a couple of things, please. We do have a series of lectures going on. The next one will be Letitia Lister from the Executive Director at the EAP, which is to do with brain health, mental health, and we all know that during COVID, this was a major, major problem. She will be talking next month. Come January, we will have Rosie McMahon.
Yeah.
Rosie McMahon, who's with the Youth Climate Activists and the Youth Climate Summit. And she will be talking about that and addressing the climate situation. And plastics also contribute to climate warming as well, to climate change, not just in their manufacture, but apparently also they're causing the oceans to warm even quicker than everything else is causing. Then in February or March, we'll have our very own Alison Copeland, who was with the Conservation Services, but is now doing her PhD at Durham University, and she'll be looking at the extinction threat to Bermuda's endemics. So thank you. So just bear those in mind for the coming months. But I would like to thank Katie and Eric for the huge, immense amount of work they have done over the last 18 months, 2 years, is it? All on their own time. They are absolutely volunteers. Their whole management committee, their committee is all volunteers. These two have put an enormous effort into this to make the government's ban a success and have the community on board. I learned a lot today. There's a lot that we can all leave with and go out and do and implement in our own lives, in our families' lives, and in our friends' lives. Thank you both and your committee so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.